as I often do. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to substitute for personal or personalized medical advice or treatment. You should not rely on the information received from this presentation for medical, legal, or professional and financial decisions. Always consult with your professional practitioner for advice relating to your situation. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of my presentation. Exodus 15:26, as was read, the scripture reading. This is what I've always been doing, reading this conditional promise, as you have heard before. So what three reasons can cause sickness? And for the glory of God, violation of natural laws, and the violation of spiritual laws. And the definition for disease. Definition or disease is that an effort of nature to free the system of conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. In case of sickness, the cause should be ascertained. Unhealthy conditions should be changed, wrong habits corrected. Then nature is to be assisted in her efforts to expel impurities and reestablish right conditions in the system. Because we know that you go to the doctor, you give you something for pain or whatever, and it just moves somewhere else. But when it comes to natural healing, and as Brother Simeon mentioned, as a gospel medical missionary, I do Bible studies as well as help people find natural remedies for their ailments. Okay, so that's what a gospel medical missionary does. But when it comes to doing natural remedies, it's not going to be instantaneously because it's helping your body to heal properly. But when it comes to drugs, it just goes from one place to the other. So that's what this is saying here. Now we're talking about Daniel tonight, Daniel's diet plan. And let us go to what the Bible said. And you know the story of what happened with Daniel and his three friends and what took place. But for some people probably don't know. This is a story about Daniel and what took place with him and his three friends when they wanted him to eat unclean foods from this king called Nebuchadnezzar when they were held as slaves. Now, this is the part that's going to be in part 2. The children in whom there's no blemish, but well favored and skillful in wisdom and cunning in knowledge and understanding science and such had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they may teach and teach the learning of the tongue of the Chaldeans. Now, all of us here, the Lord wants us to be without blemish. I'm going to expand on this in part 2, where you're going to see a bigger picture on what God expects of us. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat. Let us in our heart purpose. Let us give our heart purpose to say, Lord, I want to make a change in my life regarding what is out there. Let me make a change because I see that I'm getting sick and I'm not sure what the cause. I go to the doctor and they're saying this, but there has to be a cause. The cause that a lot of doctors are not telling you. They're only treating people for the symptoms and not the cause. And the cause is a bigger picture. And this is a true remedy. Pure air, sunlight, temperance, water, rest, exercise, nutrition, trust in God. These are the true remedies. And I had covered this before in a more broader spectrum of the presentation. I've went through all of this before, and I can send you the link to get the information that you saw if you require. But these are the true remedies. If your head hurts, it doesn't necessarily mean that that you're going to die. It means probably that you need more water, you're not drinking enough, or you rest, so you need more rest, or vitamin D. And those are just simple things. And as a gospel medical missionary, I advocate for the true remedies. These 8 doctors, this is what I advocate for. And sometimes you think that you're at a point where you're probably on your deathbed. And I gave the story about the lady who was in Jamaica, and she felt like the doctor told her that she was dying. And this gospel medical missionary came on the scene and recognized some symptoms and said, you know what, do this for me. Just walk around the field, take your time, because she was just limping. Her body was just not cooperating with her. Go around the field and do maybe it's like an hour if you can, whatever you can. Just take the time and just go there for a short while. And it was vitamin D that she needed. She was vitamin D deficient. And yes, she was in Jamaica, but she wasn't getting the vitamin D that her body wanted. And sometimes this is just what we need. So Daniel's diet plan, we hear about them many times. Now, the origin of the word diet is a practice of eating food in a regulated way to decrease, maintain, or increase body weight to prevent and treat disease such as diabetes and obesity. Dieting to lose weight is recommended for people with weight-related health problems, but not otherwise healthy people. But this was not the reason why the diet was intended anyway, but people are using it for that purpose. A well-nourished brain and well-nourished and healthy brain. The brain is the organ and instrument of the mind and controls the whole body. In order for the other parts of the system to be healthy, the brain must be healthy. And I did cover mental hygiene and mental health in 2 parts already. If by correct habits of eating and drinking, the blood is kept pure, the brain will be properly nourished. And I mentioned that your body should not tell your mind what to do. Your mind is supposed to tell your body what to do. And that's why God said, let this mind be in you. Mind cure, the relation that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. Very intimate. Many diseases from which men suffer are the result of mental depression, grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust, and all tend to break down the life forces to invite decay and death. And this is what the devil wants. When all of these mental issues are set in, it can get you at that point and say, yes, now I can break her down to leave her maker. But in the end, if it will be found, nature untrampled does her work wisely and well. Those who preserve in obedience to her laws will reap the rewards of health of body and health of mind. Too little attention is generally given to the preservation of health. It is far better to prevent disease than know how to treat it when it is contracted. We have all seen them. We have all heard about the fast, Daniel's fast, the Daniel diet plan. We have all heard them. But what is more baffling is that Christians, people weren't supposed to know what the Bible teaches. And that's at then when there's many of us supposed to know what the Bible teaches about the health message, and others are taking it. And these people many of them are not Seventh-day Adventists. And they are taking this because they recognize that there's benefit in eating healthy from the original, not after sin, but the original. So Daniel said, no, prove thy servant, I beseech you, 10 days, and let them give me pulse to eat and water to drink. Now, water, as I mentioned, is a true remedy. Pulse is also is nutrition. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat the proportion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. No, it's all in the face. It's all in the countenance. You look at somebody sometimes, you know that they're not feeling well by their countenance. And this is something that we should look at. It's not all the time when it comes to maybe like mental issues, you probably can't tell. But when it comes to sickness, you look at the person, oh, you're not feeling well today. This person's like, oh, I can see it in your face. And this is what Daniel is telling us. This is what the Lord is telling us. Let the original diet speak for itself. And this is what happened. Now, what is pulse? We're going to find out. The reason for the reform in health, our bodies are Christ's purchased property, according to 1 Corinthians 6. And we are not at liberty. We are not at liberty to do with it as we please. But man has done this. Yes, we have treated our bodies as if there's no law.
It's okay.
And not thinking that there's going to be a penalty when we mistreat the temple that God has given us. And these results, which Satan has brought about by our own specious temptation, he uses to taunt God with. Say that, look at those people that you died for. They're the sickly, and I can just get them when they're sick. He present before God the human body that Christ has purchased. And remember, there are three reasons: this violate the laws of God, the glory of God, and the laws of spiritual laws. Those are the three ways that sickness and disease comes. So in either which way, all of those three ways, because man has sinned against his body and has corrupted his ways, God is dishonored. Now think about that. When we're doing the things or putting in things that are unhealthy, God is being dishonored because it's his temple. How can the Holy Spirit dwell? Those who permit themselves to become slave to a gluttonous appetite often go still further and debase themselves by indulging their corrupt passions, which have become excited by intemperance in eating and drinking. They give loose, and that's why the Bible said in the end, it's going to be eating and drinking and marrying. And I used to think eating and drinking is a good thing. So why is the Lord saying that, not recognizing that it has to do with how we're eating and what we're eating? And there's nothing wrong eating, but why, what we're eating and how we're doing it and why we're eating either, to a large extent. How to educate the appetite. Of course, we can educate the appetite, rewire our brain. The persons who have indulged their appetite to eat freely of meat, highly seasoned gravy, and various kinds of rich cakes and preserves cannot immediately relish a plain, wholesome, and nutritious diet. Their taste is so perverted that they have no appetite for a wholesome diet of fruits, plain bread, and vegetables. As a person from Jamaica, I remember there were, used to hear people talk about, there was this Rastafarian. When you go to, people talk about how when you go to eat at his restaurant, that the salt intake is very low. So if you go there expecting to have a salty diet, you're at the wrong place, because they use salt as a minimum. It doesn't overdo it or overpower it like those salty processed food that a lot of us eat and have gotten used to. And I'm telling you, it was very successful. It was tasty, but there was not the salt content as it is in the other restaurants. And a lot of people gravitated to his food. And, look at us. Even though some people thinking that, need salt, you do need salt in your diet, but not a lot. Just a simple, that's a small amount to make it tasty to the point where it is not overpowering your taste bud and in your food. That fast would prove to them a greater benefit than medicine. When you fast a meal or two, it does your body a world of good. Now, many of us fast for a spiritual reason, but it also has a physical component to it. It helps to, when a lot of people are going through diseases, it helps to just, put a stop to it, because it's not going to mutate in your body, because there's nothing for it to feed on, especially when it comes to salt and sugar. There's nothing for it to feed on, and it feeds on the food that we eat. I remember when I was somewhere else, this lady, my employer at the time, she got cancer, breast cancer. And she changed her diet. She was Seventh-day Adventist, but she changed the way that she ate. She started juicing and do other things. She got breast cancer after someone else did, and two other persons, they died. But they didn't change their diet. I remember this one of the young lady, as soon as she came up from surgery, the thing that she asked for was a burger, and they gave it to her, not connecting that the meat has to do with, with her, partially with her breast cancer, in whole, not partial, in whole with her breast cancer. And I'm going to talk about that a little later. And she died. But my employer, she changed her diet completely, and that was more over 10 years, and she's still alive because she just changed the way that she ate. And other people had cancer, and they all died before her. So it's all in the diet. Fasting for a day or 2 or 3 helps your body to repair itself. But perseverance in a self-denying course of eating and drinking will soon make plain wholesome food palatable and will be soon eaten with greater satisfaction than the epicure of enjoy over his rich deities. Grains, nuts, fruits, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. And He knew, the Lord knows the reason why He gave those things to us. He's the maker. Many of you have cars, and if you put diesel in your car, you know that you're not going to go anywhere. You know what's going to happen. If you put milk in your gas tank, you know what's going to happen. So we have to put in the right food, get what the manual, look at the manual, and what the manual tells you, that's what you should put in your body. These food prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible are the most helpful and nourishing. They impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect. They are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. What are grains? I know some of you are familiar with some of these: quinoa, brown rice, buckwheat, and the list goes on. These are whole grains that are good for us. These are some of the pulse. These are pulse that Daniel had when he was in Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom as a slave. These are some of the things that he had, and he could be able to. There are so many things I could be able to say, but let me just stick to the slide. If I don't stick to it, I'm just going to go off and tell you so many other things to confuse you. So let me just stick to this. Grains, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator, and it is a wholesome diet. What are some basic principles of health? Regularity in meals. Do not eat them early or late, but maintain a regular schedule. If you don't skip breakfast, brethren, do not skip your breakfast. Skipping your breakfast will only cause you to have heart attack and have heart problems in the long run. Don't skip your breakfast. Even if you have to eat fruits at a specific time, and make sure that it has a regular schedule. So your stomach already knows that it is time for food and it is ready, and you know that it's crying out. Okay, so your stomach is used to eating at certain times of the day. Moderation. Only eat as much as you need. Never overeat, because you'll have digestive issues. Only eat to satisfy hunger and then stop. When you feel that you're too full and you can't go on, I could hear my coworker, oh, I ate too much. We're not supposed to be eating to that point that we start to feel sick, and you know that your stomach cannot take anymore. Take small bites. Only put a small amount in your mouth and chew. And that's why we're not supposed to be having more liquid diet, because your body, especially when you're taking your juicing, as I've mentioned before, if you juice, make sure that's going to be your meal. Don't eat food again, because your stomach is going to be overwhelmed, because it's recognized that it is already food. And food coming in as liquid, and it still recognizes this food. It's not going to say it is water. So make sure we have teeth to eat, so we masticate the food and eat slowly. Do not rush when you're eating. Don't be anxious or angry, because your stomach will tell the tale. You're going to feel your stomach. Either you're going to burp or you're going to feel your stomach sick. Just eat slowly and take your time. Don't be in a rush. We know sometimes, you're at your job and you're hurried to get this thing done. If you know that you're going to be hurried, just take a small amount so that it can fill you up, and don't overdo it. Fruits. The more natural, the better. Raw fruits and vegetables are better than cooked ones. Now, most of these, the vegetables that we so accustomed to, like the carrot is supposed to be steamed. Your stomach cannot digest it when it is raw going in. So it has to be steamed. So it is at that point where it is a little bit soft, but not too soft. But it's supposed to be steamed. And we know we used to making our salad. And I'm going to talk about food combination next week, Sunday. Be sure to join in, because many of us are not sure how or and the food combination that we're doing are causing us to be sick and having digestive issues, acid reflux, and the stomach is you're having heartburn. So when you're making your salad, make the salad that you're let me stick to what I'm doing. So we talk about that. We're talking about food combination because there's so many things for you to learn, so many slides I have left. So although some find it a little cooking is necessary, as I was mentioning, it has to be, make sure your carrot is steamed. The only thing that you're not going to steam is your lettuce because it's mostly water. You can't steam lettuce. So you put your shred your carrot after it's steamed if you want to, or cut it up, whatever. But make sure that these things that you're putting in as raw, it is steamed. Do not eat melons and cantaloupe because mostly these are at when you're eating your food. Or right. So don't eat them alone with other foods because these are mostly water. And these, because they're water, they break down in your stomach more quicker than the food that you're putting in. So if you're going to eat for instance, a fruit diet, make sure it's just cantaloupe and melons and watermelons. So it goes quickly because it's mostly water. So if you're going to eat these before you eat your regular food, don't, because it's going to digest quicker, and then the food that is in your stomach is going to take a little bit slowly, and it may ferment in your stomach. So don't eat them with anything else. Always soak your dry fruits like your raisin and your prunes and your apricots. So when you do that, it helps to moisten your fruits. The water helps to moisten your fruits, and it digests it better than when you just eat it as it is. Okay. Fruits, we would especially recommend as a healthy living agency, but even fruits should not be eaten after a full meal. Make sure you eat it before. Make sure when you're eating your fruits, eat it before. More die by eating decayed fruits. And this is another thing. If you see that there is a part of the fruit that is decayed, throw it out because it starts to get decay inside already. And you're not seeing it, but the outside is telling you, just throw it out. The reason is that because your blood will decay and you won't have good blood, and good blood can make you healthy. Okay. And also it ferments in the stomach, and you may be poisoning yourself and you don't even know it. So start throwing them out. And as I mentioned before, try and empty your garbage at least every evening, if not every other day. When it is too full, when it have too much fruits in it, it breaks down in your house, and it causes your house to be the air in your room to be impure. Intemperate eating is often the cause of sickness, and what nature most needs is to be relieved of the undue burden that has been placed upon her. A fruit diet for few days as often bring great relief for brain work, as I've mentioned before. So you can deny yourself of food after one meal, you can deny yourself 2 meals, and you can deny yourself 3 meals. For those of you who are new, it is better to space your meals. Do not eat after you have your first meal for the day. Don't go eating after another 2 hours. You're not hungry. You just need water. Drink water in between your meals, because if you eat before your 5 hours is lapsed, then your stomach is going to be overburdened. Think about it. This is the example I gave, was that your boss give you 5 hours to finish a job, and he gave you so much work to do. Then in an hour after that, he brought even more that is going to triple, and we're going to be 10 hours. How will you feel? It's the same thing with your stomach. If you keep unloading more food in it, this is what you're going to have: a lot of indigestion, a lot of stomach issues, acid reflux, and the list, ulcers, and the list goes on and on. So make sure that you space your food 5 hours apart. So what you eat in the morning, 6 o'clock or whatever time, and make sure you eat between 6 to 7 o'clock. That's breakfast time, not after. Only eat, and sometimes I fall to that when it comes to, especially on a Sunday or a Sabbath, but I'm trying my best. But on a weekday, I am very good at that. This includes whole grain cereals and bread. Never eat processed grains such as white flour products. Avoid toast wheat germ, and as I mentioned, your brown rice, toast at least for 3 hours. The brown rice as well as your oats, toast them at least for 3 hours because of the acid that's in it. It will cause you have stomach issues also. So make sure you toast them so the phytic acid will be out of it. Okay. Oats are one of the most best grain. Rye, millets, and buckwheat are also, these are excellent. You know, if you don't want to have brown rice, these are also excellent to eat. Make sure that it is recently purchased though, if you are somewhere, that you do not have your meal to eat. I'll answer your question afterward, Ada, and I'll tell you. All right. If you want to have any questions, you can post in the chat and I'll answer them afterward. You are better off having a very varied grain diet rather than just rice. As I mentioned, millet and buckwheat, you can substitute that. Even quinoa is also good. Yes, chewing, because digestion begins in the mouth as you start. Now, what is meat? Let us go to the nitty-gritty. Let us go to where the source is. God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of tree yielding seed, and to you it shall be meat. And we're going to talk about these things. What are fruits and what's a vegetable? What's fruit and what's vegetable? On perfect combination on Sunday evening. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to every living thing that creepeth upon the earth, I have given every green herb for meat. For meat. You see how people have changed it? Meat, we know, no, it's not meat. Meat is grain, nuts, vegetables. For all of these things, the Bible said he has given us for meat. Fruits, nuts, grains. These are what God has given us as a meat. Now, what is it? When the children of Israel didn't know what was falling, they said, what is it? Manna. That's angel food. That's heaven food. Bread is heaven food. If it's in heaven, we are supposed to be eating it. If it's in heaven, if God has given us in the natural state and the original state, that's what we are supposed to be eating. And by the way, coriander seed is very good as seasoning, just for you to know that. And honey is also medicinal. You're not supposed to be drinking honey all the time, because like if you're doing like I'm going to give you a recipe for flu balm, which coming up. So, these are it's for medicinal use. It's not supposed to be ingested all the time, because you don't want too much of it in your stomach, okay? Because it's for medicinal purpose only when a person has flu or when a person is getting sick, and it requires for a concoction of honey. And what is flesh? This in verse 8 of Exodus 16. And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that the Lord heareth your murmurings, which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. When we murmur for flesh, it's against the Lord. This is what flesh is. Flesh is what thing that has to die to give you food. Now, God says we could eat it in Leviticus 11, and he tells people what they're supposed to be eating. But we know when they start eating flesh, people start to degenerate. The lifespan of people start to decrease and decrease. Methuselah, 969 years. He lived a very long time. Moses, when he died, he was still in his youthful age because he was not eating the flesh diet. What others are eating. He was not eating what they were eating in the wilderness. And he was not a part of those people that died when the flesh came through their nose. Now, God wants us to eat, God wants the best for us. And if He wants the best for us, aren't we supposed to be listening what we're supposed to be putting in this machine that He gives us? Now, we said this is something that of worth and need to be noted. And in the morning, bread to the full. So bread fills, but apparently the flesh doesn't. This is something that needs to be noted, brethren. Now, after the flood, the people ate largely of animal food. God saw that the ways of man were corrupt and that he was disposed to exalt himself proudly against his creator and to follow the inclination of his own heart. And he permitted that long-lived race to eat animal food to shorten their sinful lives. God taking us out of our misery. Soon after the flood, the race began to rapidly decrease in size and in length of years. Can you imagine? If Methuselah was 969 years, he must have had that muscular strength and height. I'm sure he was not the one to be living such a long life. The inhabitants of the old world were intemperate in eating and drinking. They would have flesh meat. Although God had given them no permission to eat animal food, they ate and drank to excess, and their depraved appetite knew no bounds. They gave themselves up to abominable idolatry. And you follow the history of the Israelites when they started to go against God and started doing the things that the Lord has not given them permission to do. They start worshiping idols. They start to do all the things that the heathen were doing around them when they were supposed to be the light, when they were supposed to be the salt. Their cup of iniquity was full, and God cleansed the earth of its moral pollution by a flood. Go on, there's still more. The result of eating flesh revealed. The moral evils of a flesh diet are not less marked than our physical ills. Flesh food is injurious to health, and whatever the effects affects the body has a corresponding effects of the mind, as I said earlier on. Think of the cruelty to animals that meat eating involves, flesh eating involves, how it destroys the tenderness with which we should regard these creatures of God. Instead, we're killing them. We're supposed to be taking care of them. People eating dogs, people eating all of these things, people eating all the things that's supposed to take care of the sea, lobster, crayfish, all these scavengers of the sea. People are supposed to, that's why the sea is so dirty, because they're taking the food that's supposed to cleanse the water and eating it, and that's why you see the ripple effect, and the sea is in such a deplorable state. Now, God didn't design this is what we're supposed to be doing. The common use, and if you look at Revelation 9, it tells you about a third of what is taking place on the earth, and a third of this is happening because of man going against what God has designed. The common use of the flesh of dead animals has had a deteriorating influence upon the morals as well as a physical institution. Ill health is a variety of forms. If effects could be traced to the cause, would reveal the sure results of eating flesh. It is the sure result of eating flesh. Those who use flesh meat disregard all the warnings that God has been given them. They have not had the slightest excuse for eating the flesh of dead animals. God's curse is resting upon the animal creation. Many times when meat is eaten, it decays in the stomach and creates diseases. Cancers, tumors, pulmonary diseases are largely caused by eating meat. So if these are happening, brethren, God, and I know a lot of people say, okay, I'm eating fish. Fish is still flesh. I remember when some years ago there was a quarterly, and it talks about the same thing. The children of Israel were supposed to be purging from the flesh coming from Egypt. And I was still in my fish state. And I remember when the first time I came to Canada, in Ontario, my husband visited an old friend. My husband wasn't eating meat. My sister wasn't eating. I was the only one that took it. And they said, don't eat it. And I went ahead and I ate it. Lo and behold, I got up in the morning and my face was swollen. I was poisoned and nobody else was. I was the only one because the Lord was telling me to stop. And I still didn't. And I continued. I still continued. And I stopped for a while. And I remember I was at work once and I was in Jamaica. And the principal of the school, she was still eating flesh, and the smell, the aroma of it caught me. And my husband, he wasn't there, and I went to get some fish that evening, and I baked the fish, and I'm telling you, I couldn't go anywhere the following day. I was sick. I couldn't move. My whole system was like it was shutting down. I was sick. I had to pray and say, God, I'm not going to eat it anymore. This is the last time. And from then on, brethren, I have not touched flesh again because my body was just shutting down. I felt I was dying that evening. I felt like I was dying. I got up early in the morning. I started to get sick and my body was shutting down. But God in his mercy said, okay, I'm giving you a last chance. And that's the last chance. And I said, no more. And I thank God that I listened. I have no desire anymore to eat the flesh. No more desire. Very many animals are sold for the city market known to be diseased by those who sold them. And those who buy them are not always ignorant of the matter, especially in larger cities. This is practiced to the great extent. Meat eaters don't even know that these animals are diseased. A lot of people get sick by these animals. Swine have been prepared in the market and plagues are being upon it, and people are just eating it and are getting sick of cancer, all of these heart diseases and so on. And the list goes on, and they're not tracing it. That is because of the meat, because they're promoting. Arby said that, give me the meats and give me the disease too, because that's what you're getting. World physician cannot account for the rapid increase of disease among the human family. But God knows, because this is not what he wanted. We plant the seed of disease in our own tissue and the blood. We are the ones. When you make the decision to get that dead animal, put it in your mouth, this is what happened to your tissue. And if you could see what is taking place in your body, I'm sure, brethren, you would stop instantaneously. Then when exposed to the changes in malarious atmosphere, these are more sensible felt. Also, when we are exposed to prevailing epidemics and contagious diseases, the system is not in a condition to resist the disease. Now, if we are continuously, remember, Rhoda read the scripture in Exodus 15, and it's on condition. If we listen to what God says, he will not put the diseases that is upon the Egyptians. And if we are continuously eating the meat, then we cannot have any resistance to the epidemic, even know what is happening. The pandemic, a lot of people are dying because their bodies cannot overcome because of the meat that is exposed in their bodies, and their tissues and blood is just dying and decaying. The meat diet is a serious question. Shall human beings live on the flesh of dead animals? The answer is decidedly no. Physicians who claim to understand the human organism ought not to encourage a patient to subsist on the flesh of dead animals. They should point out the increase of disease in the animal kingdom. And a lot of people know, if you ask people who are doing who works at some of these slaughterhouses, my goodness. And if they tell you the things that that animals have to go through for them to reach to that point to slaughter them, you will not eat. The testimony of examiners, as I said, because of the things that they have seen, cancers, tumors, tuberculosis, and a number of other like affections, these are caused by meat eating. Are you prepared for translation? Among those who are waiting for the coming of the Lord, meat eating will eventually be done away. Flesh will cease to form a part of your diet. If we move from principle in these things, if we as Christian reformers educate our tastes and bring our diet to God's plan, then we may exert an influence upon others in this matter, which will be pleasing to God. God wants us to take the food that He has given us in its original form, not what is being presented to us or being forced upon us, or being forced. And the decision, of course, they're forcing some of these things to, eat these things, but the decision is still rest up to you. Am I going to take these things to cause me to be sick and cause me to decay? Now, a lot of people, as I said, and I show you the list of books, and these people, many of them are, even Dr. Oz, who is jumping on the bandwagon about Daniel's diet plan. And what are we doing if these people out there finding that the health message is better? The health is the original plan that God designed is better. Why are we not doing it? And I've said this time, I remember when in my early stage of Christianity, I didn't understand anything about what was talking about health message. And I remember this doctor, naturopathic doctor, and he said, every time that he come to the church to preach the Lord, telling the same thing, preach the health message. And he said, Lord, they don't want to hear. And he said, Lord, and the Lord said, still tell them, because it won't rest upon your shoulder because of the things that are taking place. When you find that people are not recovering as quickly, check the diet. I know a lot of people said, don't talk about hands off my plate. But are we using our fork to dig our graves? The children of Israel, we do not want any more example. When the flesh started coming out of their nose, they died. They died with the flesh coming from their nose. What more can we want from those examples? When some of us are still having diabetes, having pulmonary heart diseases, cancer, all of these things. As I said, that some diseases comes in three ways: the glory of God, you read it in the Bible, violation of the laws of health, and violation of the spiritual health. If we are preparing for translation, some of these things has to remove from our bodies. Cautions and counsels and habits which can affect our health. The wearing of nail polish. Nail polish is made of various chemicals, such as phytates, which are endocrine disruptors. These disrupt the whole system, especially the endocrine system, which is the functioning of, especially for us as women. Exposure to this chemical can lead to damaged kidneys and lungs, early breast developments, and putting on your children, this is what's going to happen. The breasts start to develop early because their hormone start to get getting imbalanced, and they start to seeing their periods at 9 and 10, which is supposed to start later in their teens, which in turn is associated with the risk of breast cancer, as well as reproductive problems, fibrocystic breasts, endometriosis, fibroids, because what takes place in the body is that it just stays there, impurities stays. Sometimes it goes in where it turns into cancer, and sometimes the impurities just stays in the body where it's in sacs, like the endometriosis, like PCSO and fibroids. These are some of the things that happens where it just stays in your body. Nails are extension of the skin. As I mentioned some time ago, when I was doing one of the other presentations talking about the trace minerals that's supposed to have in your system. And I said, look on your nails to see if you see wedges and some of these things, it says that you are lacking iron. When there are wedges in your nails and when there's whiteness in your nails, these are some of the indicators that something is wrong. So if you're constantly covering up and causing it you can't see where your health is, because that's what is going to happen when you're covering up with things that aren't supposed to be covered. Nails are extension of your skin and they are porous. Therefore, whatever chemicals you put in it is absorbed in your body. Anything, even when you spray in your house. And I said, in my presentation too, that you don't need those chemicals in your house like Lysol and some of those things. If you clean your house every week, you don't need them because your house is supposed to be, if your house is kept clean all the time, you don't need those things. Now, you can use your baking soda and your vinegar and um, essential oils like peppermint to fragrance your house, and it keeps your house clean. So the Lysol is a disrupting chemical. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I heard that on the news, Kathy Griffin, I think, she had lung cancer, said she had never smoked. But guess what? Some of the fragrance that is in your house and the chemical, these what cause the cancer and the fumes that it let out. When you're cleaning your stove, don't clean your stove with these things like the stove top cleaner, especially when you clean it very hot. It just releases all the chemicals and it goes into your system. And some of the things that even when you put on the chemicals in your skin or whatever, it goes in your blood and cause your blood to get started to be spoiled. In giving you layman terms, it starts to decay. They speak health to us, as I said before, giving you indicators. Therefore, keep your nails free from hardness or polish so you monitor your health. Monitor your health by your nails. Hair, the head has a high absorption rate. If you lack nutrients such as protein, the body pulls from the hair. And as I talk about in the B vitamin complex and in the trace minerals, we see a lot of the deficiencies we caused by the hair, where women start to get bald in all parts of the scalp because of the deficiencies that is causing the hair to be lost. They having hair loss. So when we put these things on our head, hair dyes and wigs, these are what causing your hair to have to be lost. So wigs prevent your scalp from breathing. It causes excess heat on the head and cause hair to become thin. Science allows us to take even one grain of hair by careful testing, be able to analyze and determine a person's health and deficiency of diseases. And if you watch some of these crime shows, they call it hair analysis. They will just go take the hair of a person or to prove whether or not, use it for DNA or for whatever analysis or for whatever testing. They use a stamp of your hair. So hair is very important. So when we disrupt all of these things, we are decaying our bodies. We are causing all our bodies to decrease in health and vigor and vitality. Keep our hair healthy. And, I should do something for our ladies and give you some pointers in terms of how you can manage your hair and how you can grow your hair. So I'll do it at another time. Okay. Tattoo markings on the body. The skin is the largest organ of the body. It is porous and will therefore absorb and any substance put on it. Anything. In tattooing, the skin will absorb chemicals from the ink. Do you know that if you pierce your ears or get tattooed, it takes up to 1 year before you can give blood? Many of you probably know that, but for those who don't know, just to show one side effects of tattooing, there is a metal effect on the piercing of tattoos that can cause the MRI to give you a false reading. Who knew that? Who knew? I remember a friend, one of my coworkers said, I remember my husband, when we got married and before we became Christians, she said before I became a Christian, she said that she told her husband she wanted to do tattoo. And her husband said, no, she's Filipino. And most times, the husband, from their culture, if the husband would say something, if it is not something would go against their family, they will accept it. And her husband said, no, I don't think you should do it. And she listened to her husband. Now, when they became a Christian, her husband said to her, aren't you glad that you didn't? And she said, yes, I am glad that I did not do a tattoo. So sometimes a lot of us don't know a lot of things, and when we do things, we don't know that this is going to be the result of it a year or 10 years down the line, and we are suffering from these things. Health benefit of essential oils. Eucalyptus oil, very good. A person who may be having sprains or RA, it's very good to use eucalyptus oil and inhale it when you have a headache. And as I said, you can also check the true one of the remedies, the true remedies. Either you're you lack of sleep, or you need water, or you need sunlight. These are the things that are happening to you while you're having a headache. And when you're having maybe a cold or a cough, eucalyptus oil does wonders for you. Clove is one of those essential oil a lot of people probably don't know. While it may help you when you're having a toothache, but it relieves joint pains. And inhale, it reduces symptoms of a cold or cough. Now, these essential oils are very important. And I mentioned these supposed to be in your first aid kit. Eucalyptus oil, clove oil. I'm going to show you 5 more that you need to have in your home all the time. Do not run out of these oils. Have these oils as part of your first aid kit. Tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is one of those things, as well as good for cough. Is like for persons who may have fungus in their nails, use tea tree oil regularly until it just goes away. You don't have to use antibiotic to get rid of it. As I said, when you use these things, these things are body disruptors, and these are the natural ones you can use to get rid of those things. Oregano oil. The one is wildcrafted and food grade. Oregano, you cannot have your house without oregano oil. You have to ensure, as a sign of when you're having a cold or anything. And I had to stock up mine the other day because I recognize that it was hot and cold, and the weather changed, and I'm like, no, man, I have to get stock up on this. Now, avoid it if you're pregnant or on blood thinners. Make sure you don't use it. Or you're allergic to the mint plants like thyme and rosemary. So don't use it if you are allergic to those things. It may decrease blood sugar levels. So make sure you use your oregano oil. Is antiviral, antibiotic, antifungal, you see anti-things, anti-inflammatory. Oregano oil is one of those things that you have to have. Lavender. Lavender is a calming, soothing oil. If you may having issues sleeping, maybe because of menopause, or maybe because issues, with other things on your mind, lavender oil. You just put just a drop on your pillow or whatever, and you just inhale, and you just, in no time, you just go to sleep. Peppermint. Peppermint is one of those things that it can be ingested, but you have to make sure that the ones that it says there on the label that it is you can ingest it, because not all of them is designed to do so. Okay. Now here, I need you to take a picture of this superfood bar. Make sure you have this. And I am out of right now turmeric, so I have to get my turmeric. So you have to make sure that you have this, brethren, because this can help you at the sign of a cold or flu, or maybe when you are probably exposed to somebody who has COVID. But make sure that this remedy, I'm telling you, you may feel a little stinging and burning. Don't dilute it. It won't give you the same effect. Don't dilute. Trust me. You may have a little stinging, but there are cautions. If you have an autoimmune disease, don't take it. If you have like RA, any arthritis, take out the cayenne pepper, because pepper is not good for arthritis, like sweet pepper, cayenne pepper, paprika, all of those things. Take it out of your, if you are diabetic, don't use the honey, okay? So these are some things, but I'm telling you, this is the bomb. This is how you prepare it. All right, so you can take a picture of this, and this is how you make your preparation for your superfood bomb, which is very good to help you. Okay. Um, also, we have come to the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to add too that whenever that whenever you are taking this flu bomb, if you want to dilute it so your child can have it, if my nephew, oh my goodness, he loves onion. He loves onion and garlic so much because my sister and myself, we let him have that taste so he knows, and especially he doesn't like to be sick. And so therefore, he just love eating garlic and onion. My sister is an RN and she's still her other nurse friend. And they're like, what? Is he a real child or something? That he loves this? So you can dilute it just for your child to, to that they in a safe zone. Another thing too, when your children come from school or out on the road, make sure you give them a bath. So it helps them to cut down from any sickness. And even yourself, just before you go in the kitchen or anything, have a shower so that you're free from contaminants that is outside and from people who may be sick, not only for COVID reasons, but for people who may be sick otherwise. So have yourself a bath before you get into your house. Clean up yourself, wash your face, make sure that you're clean before you go out, before you start doing anything in your house so you can be able to have good health. So we're going to talk about um, foods like alkaline foods and so on, and the cause of the digestion on the last of our seminars. So know some of the things to avoid so you can have better health. So just give me one moment. Let me stop sharing.